This is Support is Sexy, episode 503, with Amber Wright, founder of Talk to Amber. Welcome to Support is Sexy. I'm your host, Elayne Fluker, entrepreneur, author, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I bring you inspiring women entrepreneurs who share their wins and lessons to help you take your business to the next level. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Support is Sexy. I'm excited to have you here. You know, it just would not be the same without you. And if you are a woman entrepreneur and you're thinking about how to get your message out there, or maybe you have a new product or service or book or an event that you want to share with the world, you gotta consider podcast guesting. Podcast guesting is a great way to share your message and connect with thousands of passionate listeners all around the world. Now, if you haven't done it before, maybe you're new to podcast guesting, or maybe you just want to know why podcast guesting is something that I talk about so much as an important part of your marketing strategy for women entrepreneurs. Just download my free gift at girlonpodcastgift.com to find out more. girlonpodcastgift.com. Find out more about why podcast guesting is great for women entrepreneurs and learn how to be an unforgettable podcast guest and get invited back again and again. Now, on this episode, I'm super excited to share this conversation with Amber Wright. Amber is the founder of her company, Talk to Amber, which is all about communication. Communication in your business, communication to audiences, communication, as we just talked about, podcast guesting. How do you make sure that you're delivering your message authentically, connecting with your audience with clarity and confidence, and make sure that your message is getting across, that it's reaching people in the way that you intend? Amber is going to give you tips on all of that. She also talks about the meaning of what she calls word laundry, the important distinction between talking and presenting, and how, as women entrepreneurs, we need to have the right conversations. So I know you're going to enjoy this conversation with Amber. So without further ado, here she is, Amber Wright. So Amber, welcome to an episode of Support is Sexy. I'm excited to chat with you.
Hi, Elayne. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. So our first question, when did you first fall in love with entrepreneurship?
That happened for me right after I got married. And my husband and I, we planned our wedding on our own. We had a day of coordinator, but he and I pretty much did it ourselves. And I did a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of the planning. And when I was done with that, it was such a great experience. I was like, I think I want to do this forever. I want to plan events. And so I started a business. It was a small event planning business, and it was called The Right Occasion Parties and Events, with The Right as my last name.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I first was bit by the bug back, we'll be 12 years married in August of 2018. So it was a long time ago. And I decided I'm going to go for it. And I printed up cards on my printer, and I just decided that day I was going to be an event planner. I did some other things. I took classes at my local university. They had extension courses in event planning, and I looked into possibly being a CMP, a certified meeting planner. But I said, let me just go for it and see what happens. And that was my first kind of entrance into running my own business.
And what happened? Did you continue with the events planning company for a while?
For a short while, because we were married in 2006, and I started the business at the latter portion of that year. And in 2008, I started grad school.
Mm-hmm.
And my plan was to go to grad school and get my degree so that way I could be an adjunct professor and then run the event planning business on the side. So I hung the business up while I was in grad school because I had a full-time job at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, I can't do all three, so I need to hang one up. And I hung up the business, and I just never picked it back up off the shelf. So it was good, though, because I planned events. I didn't really love planning weddings for other people, though, because I felt like it was too emotional of a day.
Mm.
And it's hard to tell a bride, like, girl, you can't really afford the napkins. So,
right. I know you love them, but no.
Yeah.
You're going to get this paper.
But I did it, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it very much. And it was a good time.
So when you started that business though, were you already entrepreneurial? Did you already have a business or what was it? And I ask because it sounds like obviously you enjoyed planning your own wedding, but for it to be like, oh, I'm going to start my own business. Were you already in that space, that mindset of looking for something to do, or what were you doing at the time? Were you working
No,
somewhere?
yeah, gosh, it seems like a lifetime ago now, but I had not ever thought that I would run my own business. It wasn't a far away idea because my dad has always kind of had a side hustle. He
Mm-hmm.
worked for Verizon even way back when it was GTE. And a lot of people don't know the original name of Verizon, but he retired from there and he did some work on the side. So I think he is from whom I get my entrepreneurship gene from,
Mm-hmm.
but I hadn't tapped into it before that time. I was always really good at generating ideas for other people, but I had never thought about running my own business. And deciding to venture into event planning was the first time where I said, maybe I can make some money doing something that I really enjoyed doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I also really enjoyed just learning about the business and the industry. And that program that I went through was really eye-opening. I read books about it. I absorbed all I could about the business of it, the industry of it. And I think if I had continued with it, I would have been successful. But, your path takes you to
Different place.
unexpected places.
That's right. It sure does.
Yeah.
I think about businesses and things that I started or even things that I dreamt about that I either put on the shelf like you did or for other reasons went a different way. And it's like it was all experiences. It all brought me to this point.
Absolutely. And the great part about it is what it taught me was how, I guess it ignited in me that desire to want to do something that I love to do. So even though I put the business down, I got a job in event planning and catering and hospitality.
Mm-hmm.
So it helped me to turn the corner into this idea of what it means to make a living doing what you enjoy doing, even if it's not running your own business. And
Mm-hmm.
the job that I had while I was in grad school, I worked at a university. So I worked in higher ed for a long time. And the job I had was the combination of everything, my skill sets and communication, and also helping the campus community plan events. So it was I loved to see how that all came together, that I found a full-time job doing what I could no longer do on my own.
Now, where did you grow up? You mentioned that your dad was an influence, obviously seeing his side hustle, but where did you grow up?
I'm originally from Southern California,
Mm-hmm.
but I lived in Texas, specifically Irving, Texas, which is like a neighborhood of Dallas, and Miami, Florida as an adolescent. So I went to high school in all three states. We did a lot of moving when I was a kid.
Uh-huh.
And it was actually my mother who raised me. My father I've always known him, but he didn't really enter the picture until I started college.
Mm-hmm.
So we did all that moving, and then we ended up back here my senior year of high school. So I finished high school in Southern California, and then I started college. And when I started college, he was like, "Hey, he lived in the same city where I was attending school.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Well, why don't you come live with me and my new wife and our family?" And I said, "Oh, okay."
I haven't talked to you in a while, but sure, I'm
Yeah,
coming.
so I went because I wasn't living in the dorms. So I
Right.
went and lived with them, and that was an adventure in and of itself.
And where did
But
you go to school?
I went to Cal State University, Long Beach for
Okay.
undergrad.
Okay.
And so I still live in the same area all these years later.
So how would you describe yourself as a young person?
Oh, wow. As a young person, I was really introspective and really quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And as my family reminds me so often, I wasn't very talkative, believe it or not, as a
Mm-hmm.
child, but whenever I did have something to say, it was really profound, clear, and to the point. And I find that interesting to see how my life path has unfolded in that way. But as a kid, I wasn't very competitive. I never played sports. I had a short stint on the dance team when I
Mm-hmm.
lived in Texas, but one thing was consistent. I was good at school and I loved to read.
Now, how did the not so talkative person end up becoming a communication specialist?
Oh man, what a journey. I love how your passion will call you into your purpose. And if
Mm-hmm.
you're fortunate, it will be in alignment with your profession. And that's what I tell people. I'm really grateful that my passion and my purpose are in alignment with my profession.
But it took a while to get there, right?
Absolutely. Oh God, yes. But how the legend has it, when I was in college, I thought I was going to become a teacher, like a high school or elementary school teacher. That's what everyone told me that I should do. I think it's just because I was really smart and I always excelled at school. And it was like, oh, you should be a teacher. And so I went to college with that idea. I was the first person in my family to go to college, first generation college student. And so there was just so much that I didn't know. And I took a speech class and I really enjoyed that. And then I took another class with the same instructor. And she said, Amber, you're really good at this. Have you ever considered communication studies as a major? And I said, no, I'd never heard of it. I was a liberal studies major, but I hadn't heard of comm. And so I went and I looked it up and I decided to switch. I switched my major from liberal studies to comm. And I always say that to this date was one of the best decisions that I could have made for myself in my adult life, because the major just spoke to me. It just spoke to who I was as a person. And I have the language now to say that, communication is about how we navigate the world and how we build relationships and how we connect with people. And I think that's what I love about it so much. And, that started me on this path. And so I got my master's degree in interpersonal communication. And it's just always been something that I was naturally good at. And 5 years ago, I decided that I wanted to venture back into entrepreneurship and start a business as a communication coach and consultant.
And that's with your company. Is your company called Talk to Amber?
Yeah, so I have like two names now. I'm operating under a DBA, which is Talk to Amber Media, but I just formally and finally filed for my LLC this year. So the overall umbrella company is called Words Well Said LLC.
Words Well Said LLC. I love that.
Thank you.
So tell us then, what kind of services does your communications company offer to your clientele?
The short version of what I tell people about what I do is that I help entrepreneurs tell their story on stage and online. And what that means and how that shows up in terms of my services are kind of similar to yours, actually. If someone needs help with how they present in the media and how they tell the story that way, how their written story unfolds in a bio, or they have a signature talk that they want to develop, or a presentation that they've been booked for as a keynote speaker. People come to me for all of those different things to get help with being able to express their ideas with clarity and with confidence, is what I like to say.
So do you help them as a media coach as well?
Yes. Yeah. That's kind of a newer facet into what I'm offering. But what has been consistent is it's entrepreneurial women. And I love that because, the idea came about is I was a blogger for a long time. And
what was your blog about?
Oh, I had 3. The first one was in 2000. Yeah, a long time, 2007, but back when it was on Blogspot.
I had one of those too.
Yeah, okay. So the first one was just about me documenting my life and as a newlywed. And when I started grad school and I found out I was pregnant, I started a new one. And it was, I guess, what you would call a mommy blog, and just documenting my journey into motherhood for the first time. And then the third iteration was talktoamber.com. But then I decided I didn't want to have that just be what that was about. I wanted to actually start a business. So that was when I kind of made the shift and started to shed my blogger identity. But I was really active in the industry, and I still am. And what I realized is with a lot of bloggers and digital influencers, their blogs would take off, and then now they're being asked to speak at conferences, or they're pitching to speak at conferences, and they freak out because maybe they did or did not have a public speaking class when they were in college, but they didn't know where to go to get the help that they needed in order to succeed in those ventures. And then also get that help from somebody who understood the nature of their industry. And I realized that there was a gap there. And then another huge gap in my career is that I was a professor. I did actually become a professor. I taught courses in public speaking and interpersonal communication for 8 years. And so I was able to take all of that experience and say, I'm going to be the one that these women, particularly some men too, but mainly women, can come to for help with sharing their messages at these conferences and their events and speaking engagements. And it's worked out really, really well for me.
And that's great. Thank you for sharing that for all the women. And like you said, a few good men, I always say, who are listening, who are thinking about how to sort of, I call it the sweet spot. So it sounds like you sort of found your sweet spot by looking at what the gaps are in what kind of needs your clients or your eventual clients would want. So combining, as you said, you have experience, or you not only have empathy as a blogger, you were a blogger. So you have that experience, and then you know about making that transition into something else. For a lot of bloggers, like you said, it's speaking on stage now or doing things offline and in person kind of things, where you found or you noticed that gap there and you decided to fill it.
Absolutely. And that's entrepreneurship 101, isn't
right.
it? Find a need and fill it. And it was just this epiphanious thing where it's like, oh, there's no one doing this. And I wanted to be that person. And I have become she. I've become the one.
I have become she. I love
that woman, that a lot of women, I've had the pleasure of working with so many of amazing, particularly Black women too, who are doing really fantastic things, like Myleik Teal and Olivia Jai and Agatha Chindu of Yummy Spoonfuls, like just a variety of women that I've had the pleasure to work with.
Awesome. Now, what would you say that your clients overall, or what would you, let's see, at what stage would you say most of your clients come to you? What is their usually, I know it varies, but what is usually their greatest need at the time they call Amber?
It's the panic attack. When they have the event that's coming up and they realize they didn't really prepare for the keynote.
Right.
Because they're so busy and they just haven't had the time to really think it through all the way. And they need something. They're just like, well, I need something. And that's actually kind of where the novelty comes from with the name of my business, because I was always the person that people would come to when they had a problem and they'd say, gosh, how do I say this? I need to talk to Amber. And so when I decided, Amber Wright was taken, the URL, when I decided to start my business. So I named it talktoamber.com. And so it's normally when they're just like, I have these ideas, but I can't quite organize them. I don't know exactly what I want to say. And then they call me up and then I help them walk through that process.
So in what ways do you don't have to give us any obviously proprietary strategy or anything like that, but in what ways, for any of the women listening who are either making that transition or are doing some speaking and want to be better at it, what would you say are, 3 tips for not even just speaking from the stage? A lot of times, like you spoke about these women, it's before you get to the stage. You can't even get your thoughts together, right? So what are 3 maybe tips that you tell people of how to get clear on their thoughts and their message? Or a top tip?
Oh gosh, I think the 2 most important are, 1, are to know your audience, and 2, just know what you want to say. And by that, I mean, knowing your audience is paramount. It's the same thing as when you're starting a business. It's like, who's your ideal client avatar? Who's your target audience? And the same is true for presentation skills and for speaking. You have to know who it is that you're addressing and what are the struggles that they are having. What are their pain points, as we say, and how can your presentation then address those pain points and make their lives a little bit easier? And then that comes with understanding what you want to say. And I think a lot of people, especially those who feel like that, oh, well, I'm comfortable with talking. I can stand up here and I can do this. And it's like, wait. Talking and presenting are 2 completely different things. Like giving a speech is very different than just talking for 15 or 20 minutes. There's an art to it. There's a structure to it. There's a process. So once you identify what it is that you want to say, then you have to do that work to actually organize those things in a way that offer the best impact and offer a chance for you to have your audience feel like that you understand them. And that's ultimately the goal for every speaker.
So putting the structure around it.
Yes. And I think a lot of people don't realize that there is a structure, and it's really basic, but it's the same as if you were to write a paper when you're in college. Or in school at any time, there's an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. So there's always a beginning, a middle, and the end. But what needs to go in those parts that's when it gets a little bit more technical.
Right.
But just kind of, even if you know, all right, I have this thing coming up, what are 3 points that I want to share? That is structure and that's organization, and that will aid you, as opposed to you just standing up there and kind of winging it.
Right. And I think it's an important distinction that you made. There's a big difference between just talking and presenting.
Yes.
And some people think, like you said, they'll wing it, they'll freestyle it, they'll whatever, go with the flow kind of thing. There's maybe, I don't know, a little bit of that, but you need some structure. What are you trying to deliver, right? And then you help people, your clients, figure out how to package it, how to deliver it.
Exactly. And there's always something that happens when after we work together and now they have this beautiful outline and it's there. I call it word laundry, the process of working with my clients. It's the same thing as if you have your clothes in a dryer and your clothes are like your ideas and they're just tumbling about in a dryer. I'm the one that takes the clothes out of the dryer. I shake them out for you, fold them and give them back to you. So that way, when you wear them, you feel your best in your own clothes. So it's not me feeding you your ideas. It's me just taking your ideas and organizing them for you. So that way, when you put them on, you feel your best. And when you feel your best, you give better, you give more, you give your best, you're more confident. And something just as simple as having an outline can really change the dynamic of a person's presentation and their delivery. And that's what I live for, is having that my client feel like, oh man, this totally feels authentic to who I am, but it's much more polished than I could have done on my own.
Mm-hmm. Now, on your website, I noticed it says, from the boardroom to the bedroom, a life is about having the right conversations. So, end quote, I should say. So as women entrepreneurs, what would you say are the right conversations we need to be having?
That's a really good question. The right conversations, I think that as women entrepreneurs, that okay, now I'm rushing over my own words.
You're so excited to get it out.
Yeah. The right conversations are, I think it's threefold. One, it's the conversation that you have with yourself. How do you talk to yourself? What kind of things do you speak over yourself and into your life?
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much that goes into that. And I think we overlook the power of the word with intrapersonal communication. So we're talking about interpersonal, which is you and another person with whom you're in a relationship with, but you are in first a relationship with yourself. So intrapersonal communication, I think, is it should be a healthy conversation with you first, to say, girl, you can do this. You are capable. You are smart. You is kind,
You is important.
You is important. Exactly. So I think having a sense of oneness in that regard is important, and being mindful of the language that we use with ourselves. And then secondly, it's how do you converse with the people that are around you? Because if you're running a business and you have really big dreams, not everybody that is around you is going to get it. And how do you still instill faith in them that you are capable of doing what you desire to do, but can still meet whatever needs and goals or objectives that you might have? Say if you have a partner and you're just like, it's hard being in a relationship with a visionary or a dreamer or even just an entrepreneur, because we always have these ideas and, we get squirrel syndrome and we're kind of all over the place sometimes. So I think it's important for us to know how to have healthy conversations with the people that are around us. Mm-hmm. So that way, as we are on these journeys, we can get the support that we need. And that looks differently, for everybody, and everyone needs different things. And by support, I don't mean people just buying your product. I mean, can you stand it when I'm stressed out because I haven't had any clients this month? That type of stuff, just making sure that you're having healthy dialogues with the people around you. And then finally, it's having healthy conversations, or the right conversations, with the people that you serve, because I think that entrepreneurship is about service. So who is that woman or that man or that person out there who needs what you have to offer? And how do you engage with them? Is it a way that is honest and sincere and genuine? Or is it contrived? Is it just you copying what somebody else was doing because you thought that was successful for them, so you want the same thing? And really being mindful about how we choose to engage with our community and the people that we desire to serve.
Excellent. Now, since we're talking about threes, you made that threefold. I didn't ask for three, but three is perfect. I love three. It's perfect. You're an outline person. I can tell you think that way.
Absolutely.
So it's threefold. Here are the three parts of this answer. I love it. So then let's talk about three common mistakes or blind spots that a lot of us have when we are trying to effectively communicate. Whether that's, and I like that you mentioned communication with yourself. So I was thinking communication with an audience or that kind of thing, but just in general with communication, what are some of the mistakes, or three of the mistakes that you think we make or that you commonly see?
Yeah, I think as it relates to presentation skills, people, kind of like we were talking about a second ago, they devalue the importance of rehearsing because they think they got it. Mm-hmm. And
what is that? Yeah, sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say, what is that quote? I don't know who said it, but it's amateurs. what is it? Amateurs practice until, oh man, I can't remember how it goes. It's something like amateurs practice until they get it right. For professionals practice until they can't get it wrong. So it's all,
Cool.
yeah,
I've never heard that before.
I gotta look it up and send it to you. But anyway, that's what I thought of when you said that. It's sort of amateurs just do it to the point of, okay, I think I got it. Whereas professionals feel like whatever, no matter what happens, they won't get it wrong. Anyway,
right.
practice,
And that doesn't mean that you memorize it either. There's
right.
in the discipline of communication, there's what we call extemporaneous speaking, and there's impromptu on one end, and then there's manuscript on the other that is memorized. One is on the fly and one is memorized, and extemporaneous is right in the middle, where you memorize it enough to where you know what you're going to say, but every time you say it, it comes out a little differently. And that is ultimately the goal, that it should feel conversational when you're talking to your audience. And I was just at a conference a couple of weeks ago in Atlanta, and one of the women, she came to me. I didn't speak at the conference. I spoke there last year. And she remembered my presentation from last year. She said, "You're so good. Like, how?" She's like, "Are you just naturally that good?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I mean, like, yeah, kind of."
Right.
And she said, well, "What do you do?" I said, "I practice."
Right.
And she was like, "Oh, you do?" I said, "Yeah, well, first of all, I'm not going to be a fraud and tell my clients to do one thing and I don't do it myself. So everything I tell my clients to do, I do myself. And second, it takes effort in order to be good. And I think sometimes people just don't realize that. And so you can have this natural talent, but it's important that we harness it and we, like we were saying before, kind of polish it in a way that delivers the message with the most impact. And so that's, I think, the primary mistake that people make. And I think secondly, it's not knowing what you're going to say. And that can feel overwhelming. I get that can feel like, well, I don't always have the right thing to say. I don't really know. But sometimes we can just slow down and really think about what do I want to say and what do I want to communicate here, whether that's on a stage or in the line at Starbucks with somebody while you're waiting for your drink. It's kind of like what are you trying to communicate to people? And I don't want people to be so stuck in their minds that they overthink everything, but it's especially when you're speaking on a stage, or especially if you want to get paid to speak, because a lot of people are like, I want to be paid. And I have a message. It's like, okay, girl, well, yeah, that's fantastic that you have a message, but why would somebody want to pay you to hear that message? And then that's when we get I hadn't thought about that. Exactly. So I think kind of just taking the time to think about what your message is and what you want to communicate is important. And, gosh, if I could think of a third mistake that people make, I would say, and I think this is because it's related to what I do, it's not feeling like what they have to say is worthwhile. So I know that might even sound a little contradictory to my last point, but I think what I want to convey here is that it's important for you to recognize, or for you to think, that your voice matters. And that your story matters. You don't owe anybody your story, because even I am a person that encourages people to tell your story and share your story. And I do believe in that, but I also believe that, no, you don't owe any. If you're not the kind of person that feels like you need to share it, then you don't have to. But if you feel inspired to, just know that there is somebody out there whose life can be impacted and can be changed by what you have to say. But if you don't believe that it's worth being heard, so that can even translate to somebody being at a board meeting at work. They don't feel like what they have to say is worthwhile, even though they might have the answer that could solve everybody's problem. It's like, well, why didn't you think that you had something worth contributing? And I think that kind of goes back to that self-talk a little bit. So just believing and having the confidence that what you have to say matters, and that your voice matters, and you should take it off mute and turn up the volume and use it.
That's right. Now, going back to practice really quickly, what are some of the things that you do to practice? So, because when people hear that, does that mean saying your speech in the mirror? Does that mean saying it in front of other people, or both? Does that mean, like you said, some memorize it, some kind of get an idea of their outline and go from there? What could practice look like for people listening who are working on their speeches?
Practice looks like drilling whatever you want to say down to 3 points. And 3 is the sweet spot, because 2 is not enough and 5 is too many most often. So whether you're on a podcast or whether you're on a stage or teaching, training, 3 is just a good number, because it also gives you flexibility in terms of how much or how little you say. And so once you know kind of what your 3 points are that you want to share, I definitely recommend practicing in the mirror. because I feel like that's the only way that you can see how you translate to other people, what you look like to other people. And for myself, for example, I'm really expressive. I roll my eyes a lot. I roll them upward when I'm talking. I talk a lot with my hands. And these are things that I can feel myself doing, but I don't actually know what that looks like until I look at myself doing it. Or I used to do interviews on YouTube a couple of years ago. And I had to watch them, and watching them back, I'm like, girl, put your hands down. Because like my hands would be all in the camera. And that's kind of how you can get better, is by watching how you present. And then when I'm rehearsing, if I have a keynote or a presentation that's coming up, I use the voice notes on my phone, because at the very least, you should try to practice at least 5 times out loud. And each time should be slightly above that of a conversation level. So your voice is projecting where you're not yelling, but it's slightly elevated. And it just kind of gives you that sense of feeling like you are presenting in front of an audience. And recording on my voice note is great, because if I'm pressed for time, I will listen to the playback, and that will count as a rehearsal for me, because it's almost like embedding in my mind what it is that I want to say. Now, I've been doing this so long, and I've taught it for so long, that time frame is shortened for me, because once I feel like I have the rhythm of it and I have the gist of what I want to say, I'm pretty much good after I get it out a few times. But that's what I always say. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say what I always say, which is, don't let the first time you hear your presentation be the day you give your presentation.
Right. That's right. Definitely. And I love that idea of recording it too, and hearing and playing it back, hearing it in your mind. It's just something about that too, like hearing it in your own ear, I should say, as opposed to just when you're actually saying it. You can pick up on, I sort of think it's like, maybe I think this because of podcasts. I listen to my podcast, like I always say, it's like game footage. I listen to see, I should have asked this question. I should have done this. I could have followed up there. I missed this, that kind of thing. But hearing it back, in the moment, you're in the moment. But you get to sort of review different places where you might want to add some nuance, or something that even find something that worked well.
Exactly. And a lot of people come to me because they say, I say and a lot. And that's the first piece of advice that I give them. If you want to do better with that and say and which are called vocalized pauses or fillers, and you want to use them less, that the best way, the quickest fix for that is just to listen to yourself and how much you use them. And I don't know a person who won't want to use it. I always say at least one time less the next time you talk.
When
after
you hear
you
yourself.
heard yourself. Exactly. And that's always the starting point, is try to do it one less time the next time you talk. And eventually you'll just become aware of it, and you'll use them a lot less. I won't say not at all and eliminate them from your vocabulary, because we all use them. It's and all, or it's just a part of language. It's
a part of communication.
So fluid, yeah.
Right.
But as a speaker, if you want to really shine up with the way that you deliver, using them less is important. But you have to call it to your intention first, and you can only do that. Or a great way to do that is just to hear yourself talk and listen to yourself speak.
Excellent. Now, your book, Can We Talk, shares, quote, 10 life lessons on finding your voice and finding yourself. So when it comes to messaging and finding one's voice, what's one life lesson that you, or maybe 3, since we talk about 3s, but a life lesson that you'd want women entrepreneurs listening to remember?
Ironically, it's not even something that relates to, it's related to communication, but I think my best answer for that is to really think about what you want. And I opened the book discussing how a mentor of mine asked me that question once. She said, well, Amber, what do you really want? And the way she said it, it just shook me to my core, because I knew that I had been playing games with myself and with my career, and I wasn't really operating in the space of achieving what I really wanted. And having to think that through and offer her an answer, it changed my life. It changed the trajectory of my career at that time. And so I always say that it's important for us to think first about what you really want out of your life, out of your business, out of your relationships, because once you can think that through, it helps us to take ownership of what that is. And when I own what that is, then I can say, this is what I desire from whomever. And being able to communicate in a very clear and sober way, I think helps us to have more impact and helps our relationships to be much more dynamic, because you're clear now. This is what I want from you. This is what I need, whether it's a raise or I need more cuddle time, whatever. First asking yourself, what do I really want? And having the bravery to answer that question honestly is the first step to finding your voice and finding yourself.
So what would you say as of today that you want as related to your business?
I endeavor to be the Beyonce of my craft. And by that, I mean, some like her, some don't, but you can't deny the work ethic. And I personally believe that if you work hard and you over-deliver and you are a pleasure to work with, you will make money, particularly as a service provider. For people with products, that's a little bit different. But as a service provider, that's kind of like my mantra. And so that's what I want. I want to be ultra successful at what I do because of those three things: that I work hard, I over-deliver, and I'm a pleasure to work with. So I feel like I'm on pace.
Sounds like it. All right. Sounds like it.
But I'm working on it. So,
and I love your vision. Nothing wrong with being the Beyonce of anything.
Right.
Right. That's what I say about podcasting. I'm channeling Oprah. I want to be the Oprah of podcasting.
I love it.
There you go. Now, what would you say is one thing that you wish you knew before you opened your business? If it's something you either wish you knew or some advice that you might give yourself a few years ago when you started Talk to Amber.
I would say that you don't have to be the team captain of Team No Sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I really got started with entrepreneurship, that was the culture online. They sleep, we grind. And that's, hey, if you like it, I love it. But that mentality was very exhausting for me, especially because I just entered into my business full time at the top of 2018. But I've had the business for 5 years. So it was always something that I did in the margins of my life. And at one point I had 3 jobs. I had a full-time job in higher ed. I taught courses at night. And then I ran the business by late night, in addition to being a wife and the mother to 2 children.
Mm.
So I had a very, very full plate. And staying up late to kill myself all the time in the name of hustling, it just wasn't working for me. And I had to accept that my path is my own, my journey is my own. And even if it takes me time, if I'm trying to build something that's going to last and be around for a long time, then I need to take my time. And I feel as though that was the best lesson that I could have learned as an entrepreneur, because it's when you work in that space of just that constant grind, then I feel that's when you're more susceptible to comparisonitis, I like to call it, where you're comparing yourself to everybody else. Well, wow, she has this, or she has this many followers, or she's doing this. And it's like, you got to focus on, keep your head down and keep your eyes on your own paper, and just do what's best for you and what works for you. And finally understanding that and understanding what that looked like really helped free me to do what I needed to do in my own time and in my own way. And I feel like that was a very valuable lesson.
I think, yeah, people are coming around, or at least the people I see, the women especially, are learning or accepting, like you said, okay, I can do this quote unquote hustle and grind thing, but then I'm going to be worn out within a week or a month, as opposed to I'm trying to build this business for the long term. It's not a short, if you're working on a project and you're doing something for a certain amount of time, maybe that's different. You're doing a launch, maybe that's different. But doing that for the long haul, people are having heart attacks nowadays, young people. Right? With that kind of thing. I think same thing with whether working out, exercising, meditation, whatever kind of overall therapist, I'm very much for that. Whatever kind of wellness practice too, people are looking at a lot more as far as entrepreneurs. Just, if I want to do this for the long haul, I got to make time to take care of myself before I think a lot of us would sacrifice that. I don't have time to go to the gym. I don't have time to do this.
Absolutely.
So
now, I would say that I'm no good to anybody if I'm stressed out and frazzled and frustrated all the time. And entrepreneurship will do that to you, especially having an online-based business. Mm-hmm. The internet never turns off. So That's you have to be the one to say, okay, let me close this laptop and take a step away, take a breather. I do what I like to call Amber appreciation days. And those are days where I do whatever my heart desires. So If I've been craving Chinese food, I go to the Chinese restaurant, take myself to lunch, or I'll go to the movies, or I'll just do whatever I feel I need to fill me up. Adjacent from, completely apart from my husband and my children, I just need time to be Amber. I don't want to be nobody's entrepreneur. I just want to be me. And those moments, and I've kind of trained my family to understand that now. It's like, oh, mommy has her mommy appreciation day.
I love that.
So that way they know, like, this is important. So then when I come back, I'm free. I'm here. Let's play. Let's get on this floor and play puzzles and do whatever. And I can give my husband his time, and I can give my business the time that it needs. But if I'm not well, then none of that gets to happen.
Mm-hmm. So in closing, Amber, if you think of your life and career and you had the chance to thank only one person whose support was critical to you personally or professionally, who would that be and what would you say?
Oh, gosh. I'd have to thank my husband, because as I was saying before, it's not easy being married to a dreamer. And I like to say that he empowers me to do what I want to do as it relates to my business. And he believes in me. And that belief looks like making sure the kids are good when mommy's away on travel, and making sure that we talk on FaceTime when I'm away, or when I need to be up late and I have to be holed up in the office because I have client calls, and just when the nature of the work that I do calls me away from the center of our home. And I'm very, very grateful to have a partner who is as supportive as he is and has been, and I'm sure he will continue to be, because part of what I do is for the success of the family. And he's employed, and he's got his own life and career as well. But I think him being able to look at him and have him say, babe, you got this, like, you can totally do this, and I support you in whatever you need. That, I think, is the one constant in my life. Mentors come and go, and you can read an article and it has an impact on you and you might learn something from it. But to live my day-to-day life with someone who actively shows me how much they believe in what I do, that means the world.
That is beautiful. I love that. If you're going to have a partner, that's the way.
Yeah, and I, we have our problems just like anybody else.
Of course.
After almost 12 years of marriage, and it's certainly not perfect, if that even exists, because I don't think it does. But I feel that we are constantly working at striking that sense of peace that works for our home. Mm-hmm. And what works for our home may not work for the next, but for the two of us and for our children and the culture of our home, it's great. It's a great dynamic, and I'm grateful. Every month this year, I had at least one. I've had and will have at least one trip away, and my kids are 7 and 2 at the time of this interview, so they're little. And but I'm grateful that I can go and do that, knowing that they're good, and that's important. So it takes a lot to make any relationship work, but especially when there's someone who's very enterprising and is an entrepreneur, it takes that much more.
Right. That's right. Now, what are the ways that we can support you? Tell everyone your website, any social media you want us to know about. I'll have links to everything, but just so everybody can hear it in case they want to have a feeling some people might want to get in touch with you about this communications, consulting, and coaching especially.
Sure. And thank you for asking. I'm on the book, the bird, and the gram at Talk to Amber. So it's easy to find me. And my website is talktoamber.com. If you head there and you're interested in learning more about me, about my work, there's links there for all of that. And if you're interested in working with me, then you can just fill out one of those short forms on the services page, and I'll get an email and we'll respond to you. And I look forward to hearing from whoever would be interested in connecting with me, either on social or on my site.
I have never. Now, I am always late to all the trendy new sayings. The book, the bird, and the book, the bird, and the gram.
Uh-huh.
Is that something that people say that you made that up?
Yeah.
I love that. I was like, I love that. That's good. It makes it so easy.
Yeah,
Yes.
in interviews. And people get it when you say the gram. Then it's like, oh, the book is Facebook.
Right. As you were talking, I was thinking like, oh, okay. Yeah, I love that. That's good, Amber. That's why you're a communications expert. See, you get people drawn in. I was like, the what? Oh, the bird. Okay. Excellent. Thank you so much. This was so fun. A great conversation and honestly, great tips and advice. Really good.
Oh, my pleasure. And thank you for allowing me to share this space with you and your community.
Of course. Now, before you go, what's a parting piece of advice from you to our listeners about anything?
Parting piece of advice would be, I mentioned it before, but I'll say it again. Take your voice off mute. And that's it.
And that's it. All right. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Amber. To find out more about her, to get in touch with her, to find out more about her services, make sure you go to supportissexypodcast.com. Go to that search icon at the top and just search Amber, Amber. Her show notes page will pop up with the links, the resources, and the ways to get in touch with her. Supportissexypodcast.com and just search Amber. Thank you so much for being here. You know, I appreciate you. As I always say, it wouldn't be the same without you. Now, make sure that you and I are connected on social media at Elayne Fluker, at Support is Sexy. Let me know what you're thinking about the podcast, the women that I bring on. You know, I love to hear from you. And until we chat again next time, always remember, support is sexy, and having it all doesn't mean doing it all alone. And I'll talk to you soon. Take care.